It's been 5 years since we've done a top 5 underrated guns video, so it's time for an update, boys. Alex handled the last one and I mostly agreed with his picks, but with Alex's list, there were no rules. We're gonna do something a little bit different this time because it's 2021 and this isn't NOM. There are rules for the 2021 edition. Rule number 1, I'm not going to use any of the guns from the last list. Rule number 2, this list will only include guns that are currently in production. There are probably 100 or more old guns out there that have been discontinued that are totally underrated, like for example, the Beretta 84 BB that I reviewed a few months ago. Rule number 3, we're gonna use no more than one gun from any specific manufacturer. And rule number 4, I'm ashamed to say, we have a subreddit, the TFBTV subreddit. I'll place a link to the thread where I ask you to come and name the top 5 most overrated guns of all time, and I'll make a video purely from the top 5 comments in that thread, and the winners will get gun swag as prizes. So let's commence with the glory and pain that is a TFBTV top 5 list. The Glock 19. One of my most favorite handguns, but there are a lot of people who don't like Glocks for one reason or another, mostly due to untreatable mental disability. But what if Glock apostates could get a gun that's slightly lighter, slightly thinner than a Glock 19, optics ready, and in the same frame size and capacity with a better trigger? Oh, and we'll make it cost like 400 bucks. And it's not going to be made in a second or third world country. It sounds too good to be true, but believe me, it exists. If you want to find it, head south from Glock headquarters, cross the border from Wiener Schnitzel and opera into the Slavic wonderland of ceviche and tracksuits. We're going to one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to, Slovenia. That's where you'll find a military-grade factory that builds the Rex Delta 2.0. RX, a criminally underrated manufacturer. I visited their factory a few years ago, and bear in mind, this is not a manufacturing facility that just sprang up to make cheap handguns for the US market. RX is an honest-to-God, 3 shifts, 24-hour-a-day European military factory making ordnance for government customers. In other words, these guys know what they're doing, and they have top-of-the-line machinery and experienced labor. They hammer forge their barrels, they CNC machine all their components in-house, they hand-finish their handguns, and I'm pretty sure that most of them are sober the whole time. When I was there, the guns were being hand-assembled and hand-finished, submitted to real quality control measures with boxes of guns traveling around the factory with so-called birth certificates that identified every employee that handled them along the process. Every gun was test-fired, and a sample size of the guns would be endurance tested through performance tracking machines. The Delta is 2 ounces lighter and very slightly thinner than the Glock 19, and some people would agree that it has a better trigger with a very short 2mm reset. The newer Gen 2 models will accept optics, and they'll come in several different sizes with interchangeable back straps. The Gen 2 also uses, like the SIG P320, a serialized fire control unit, meaning you can easily swap from frame to frame to frame of different size without having to go to your FFL. Another odd perk of the Rex Delta, most Glock 19 holsters will work with it. Best of all, this gun costs around $400 street price. I reviewed the Gen 1 and I did a 1,000 round torture test of the Gen 2. Both of those videos are available in the TFBTV library if you want to know more, but I think the Delta is highly underrated.
All right, hold on. Keep it rolling. I just got to take the cigarette out. It just doesn't work.
Number 4 is, as usual, our controversy slot. No one likes to start the video out with a controversial pick, but no one wants some wild-ass Justin Bieber of a gun in the top 3 either. If you do crack because you have no money, or you have no money because you do so much crack, I've got fantastic news for you, buddy. Stick around. Meth guys with the rubber band banks in their socks, skip right ahead to number 3. Back when the channel only had like 100, 200,000 subscribers, I bought a High Point 380 for 90 bucks from an online auction. It was 10 or 12 years old, pretty rough shape. Going once, going twice, and... oh, yeah, Joe! TFBTV was still a young channel, and everybody knows that in both middle school and in prison, if you're the low guy in the totem pole, one way to get yourself higher and defend your b-hole is to bully the one guy everyone hates. So I'm a little ashamed to admit that I bought this high point as a crowd pleaser. I was going to cyberbully this gun because I was positive it was going to fail miserably and everyone was going to dance around the corpse. I was completely wrong. No matter what I threw at the high point, it was still functional. I even tossed it in the bayou, which has a muddy silt bottom. I pulled it out, shot it, still functioned. I've done that a ton of times since. So this bayou water is brackish, and I'm not kidding. When FN sent me the 509 to test a few days after it took a swim, the semi-salty water rust-locked the gun and shut it tighter than Dick's hat band. FN destroyed that gun, and then they never talked to me again after that. But days later, the high point did not rust. I guess that's a perk of not being made out of real metal. And in this never-before-seen, extremely dumb and unsafe footage, I fired an overcharged proof round through the high point.
See what happened? It's completely jammed open. I bet the barrel is screwed. I gotta tell you, I'm shocked that it's in one piece. I mean, you wouldn't even know that anything happened to it just by looking at it here.
As you can see, the gun did not explode. I never put that footage in the initial video because I was worried you guys were gonna roast me for my incredibly dumb test method. And now that you all know that I'm purebred Florida man, I don't think anyone is surprised by anything dumb I do anymore. Shortly after the video came out, a bunch of other larger YouTube channels did their own tests, and now the high point's durability is relatively well known. Does it have an awful trigger? Yes. Is it extremely large and heavy for having a limited capacity of 9 rounds? Absolutely. Is it the Nissan Sentra of guns? Perhaps. But it's a gun that costs less than 150 bucks, made by hardworking, God-fearing Midwesterners, and you can depend on it. I don't know what more you can ask for. Number 3 is not going to surprise many of you, but I am positively giddy to place this gun on this list. Those of you who don't know me well will think I'm doing this purely to wrestle your jimmies, but that's not the case at all. I love this gun so much that I've got 4 of them. That's right, the KelTec P380 is one of the most underrated guns you can buy today. It's the smallest and lightest magazine-fed semi-automatic .380 on the market, weighing just a tick over 8 ounces, which is insane. It's that small, but it carries 7 total rounds of .380 ACP. Modern .380 ACP rounds are capable of passing the FBI's ballistic testing threshold for lethality, that is, penetrating over 12 inches of ballistic gel with decent expansion. So they pack a punch, and they're also pretty reliable. Well, I've read your comments on prior videos, and it seems that some of you have indeed gotten some unreliable samples, but all 4 of mine have been flawless. It seems like the majority of them that come out of the factory, they work as they should. I recently visited the KelTec factory, and I saw these guns being made lovingly by the beautiful people at KelTec, who are extremely proud of their work, as they should be. So yeah, they're cheap and therefore economically constructed. The gun I like to call the Dice Game Defender is nothing glitzy, it's not glamorous, it's got a heavy double action trigger to boot. For single stack .380s, I like the Car P380, and I like even more the Glock 42. Those guns will definitely outperform the KelTec, but they're bigger, they're heavier, and they're substantially more expensive.
Little Pocky gun.
You can pick up a P380 for under 200 bucks. It seems like George Kellgren got the gun design right back in '99, as they have no plans of changing or discontinuing this gun because the P32 and the P380 have been stellar sellers for over 20 years. When they first came out and I ran my own gun store, I couldn't keep the 380s in stock for like more than 4 or 5 hours. Dead serious. And don't sleep on that KelTec P32. The P32 looks similar to the P380, but it weighs a mere 6.5 ounces, or roughly 170 Skittles. That's insane. You also get 1 more round of capacity out of the P32, that's 7+1. over the P380. While the 32 ACP cartridge is significantly weaker than 380, I promise you that your face won't be able to tell the difference across a dive bar pool table. Plus, it's so small that you probably won't remember which pocket has your KelTec and which one has your soft pack of Newport shorts. Number 2, and I am really sorry guys to have 4 handguns on this list. I promise the next one's a rifle. I was genuinely shocked when I reviewed the Beretta PX4 Storm compact. Just like your sister or the last 2 guns on this list, the Storm is heinously ugly. And I also consider the PX4 Storm compact to be a little on the large side for a concealed carry handgun, so I never really paid it any attention until the guys at Langdon Tactical reached out to me and asked me if I would like to try out their version of the PX4 Storm, the compact carry, which I agreed to do. Like the High Point, I thought this gun was going to be a pretty easy one to pick on for your amusement, but the Storm brought the thunder. I did my research and I found out that this is indeed one of the most durable and reliable pistols out there, which is surprising. An independent Italian proof house allegedly tested the Storm for the German police, and 3 copies of this gun went 10,000 rounds without a malfunction. The compact uses a rotating barrel operating system, and while this makes the gun a little bit thicker, it does a good job of absorbing recoil better than traditional tilting barrel designs. Plus, it's a hammer-fired double-action, single-action, which is a great option for people who are worried about carrying a striker-fired gun without a safety. That first trigger pull is going to be a little bit heavier, and you can depress the hammer with your thumb when you reholster to prevent the gun from accidentally firing. So the PX4 Storm, pretty safe, pretty reliable, and actually pretty accurate.
Not shitty.
And that's due in no small part to the LTT trigger, which was one of the best triggers I've ever felt on like a duty handgun. I mean, as far as handguns go, I was shocked to find that the Beretta 92's hair-lipped cousin has the potential for a remarkable trigger. In single action, while like with most hammer-fired guns, you do have a little bit of take-up, as you can see there. Trigger pull weight is a mere 3 pounds on the dot. And that's fine because it's a double action, single action. So it isn't like you're carrying this thing, I certainly hope not. It isn't like you're carrying it cocked with a 3-pound trigger. You're going to be carrying it with the hammer down, and that means that your first trigger press, you're going to be pretty damn sure. I think the LTT trigger is a must if you own this gun. No one takes the Storm seriously for some reason, but in my mind, it's the best polymer-framed hammer-fired pistol on the market. Speaking of which, I had a very hard time choosing either the PX4 or the Beretta APX, which are both underrated handguns. I just think the PX4 has more to offer over its hammer-fired polymer frame competition than the APX does over other striker-fired plastic guns, if that makes sense. My number 1 pick is a gun I've been high on for a long time, my friends. In fact, my first big video for this channel about this specific rifle hit 3 million views, and it wasn't even that great of a video. I never intended to be the Ned Flanders of the Mini 14, but by golly, here I am. And I don't want to hear any sailor talk in the comments about this gun. The people who have the worst things to say about the Mini 14 are the people who don't own them. And, well, the people that did own them, but I mean, that is, owned them before the 580 serial prefix models came out. There was a time when the Mini 14 was less accurate than a Midnight Piss, but Ruger undertook to reinvent the gun back in 2003 with a few modifications in the following 5 years, like through 2008. In order to make the gun more accurate, they reprofiled the barrel, they tuned the gas system, and they brought the Mini 14 up to snuff. I managed, with mine, to get 2-inch groups at 100 yards with Wolf Gold, and even a little over 1 inches at 100 yards with American Eagle. This is cheap ammo you can get from Walmart or whatever. So Ruger redesigns this gun, but they don't do anything cute like change the name to the Mini 15 or like the Maxi 14. They just kept calling it the Mini 14. And I think all of us appreciate the heritage of this rifle, and I personally am glad that they stuck with the name, but perhaps one unintended consequence is that most of the gun public was used to several decades of subpar performance from this gun, and they had no reason to believe that anything changed, right? Because it was still called the same thing. although a lot has changed. The first Mini 14 that I bought was the Mini 14 Tactical on 300 Blackout, and I absolutely love it. It's reliable, it's great for suppression with its fixed piston system, it's handy, it's nimble, and it has a better trigger than 95% of the AR-15s out there. But on the downside, it has an MSRP of about $1,200. Now you'll find them on the street for the $900 range, but some of you may say, why should I get the Mini 14 over an AR-15? It's a fair question. Look, if I had to choose a $1,000 AR-15 or a $1,000 Mini 14, I'd probably just get the AR-15. But if you want an AR-15 that's the same quality as the Mini 14, you're still going to be spending something approaching $1,000. As I proved in my AR-15 versus Mini 14 video, a $450 or $500 AR will not compare favorably to the new Mini. And there are some advantages, several of which I went over in that last video, 8 reasons why the Mini 14 is better than the AR-15. First of all, the 300 Blackout version suppresses very well, and it isn't as gassy as an AR-15.
I've got 6 rounds in this mag. The top 3 are going to be supersonic, the bottom 3 are going to be sub, and hopefully the mic will pick up the difference between the two. It'll be kind of a neat experiment. Wow.
You can get it in stainless steel, which has some advantages. It's legal, I believe, in all 50 states. The trigger's great out of the box. You're looking at between 5.5 and 6 pounds, crisp, with maybe a millimeter of take up before the trigger breaks. There's no buffer tube like there is with the AR-15, which means that you can install a Sage EBR stock or a folder like the Samson A-Team stock, which I love. And speaking of the A-Team, I pity the fool who doesn't at least respect the Mini. Guys, that's it for me today. Don't forget to vote on your most overrated guns at the link in the description. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, Ventura Munitions in Las Vegas, and your online shooting sports superstore, Top Gun Supply. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.